Today on Beyond 6 Seconds.
You really have to start, especially young people. I think that people just get so paralyzed by the idea of, I don't know what to do, or I don't know what to start with, or I don't know how to start. It's like, you probably don't know how to start, and you have to start anyway. That's the secret.
Welcome to Beyond 6 Seconds, the podcast that goes beyond the 6-second first impression to share the extraordinary stories and achievements of everyday people. I'm your host, Carolyn Keel. On today's podcast, I'm speaking with Avery Schrader. Avery is the founder and CEO of Modash, a startup based in Tallinn, Estonia. Modash is actually a brand new name for Avery's company. Until recently, it was called Makery. So during the podcast, you'll hear us refer to the company by its former name a couple of times. The company helps brands and agencies collaborate with online creators and helps creators grow, create, and do what they love. Avery, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Carolyn. I'm super psyched to be here.
Happy to have you here. So tell me, how did you get the inspiration to start Modash?
I don't know. It's kind of a long story. I've been reflecting on this a lot lately because it's a question that comes up a lot. When I look back at growing up, as a kid, we moved around a lot. And so I was always like, it seemed like I was always looking for friends. And when I kind of discovered YouTube and these online platforms where people were doing crazy stuff and documenting their lives or creating awesome skits or telling stories that I really connected with, it inspired me to live my life a little bit differently than maybe I otherwise would have. And so now that I'm older and I still kind of celebrate those creators that I grew up watching, and some of them still make content, some of them don't, but now's a great time for me to try to give something back or to build more of those people, to help them do the thing they want to do, because they kind of helped me get through those tricky times where I was always hunting for friends. Yeah, those people were always there for me when I wasn't sure if anybody else was, So that's the inspiration for Makery, at least, is kind of giving back to creators, allowing them to be inspired the way that they kind of inspire us.
Wow, that's awesome. And when you talk about online creators, what kind of content or what types of creators do you usually work with?
We're building this technical platform that allows agencies to access influencers with specific audiences anywhere in the world. So it's like a big database, and then they can search by target audience, is kind of the simple explanation. But what we do with creators right now is all kinds of different people, mostly micro influencers, people on Instagram and YouTube, and even sometimes just professionals in the creative space that want to build their personal brand. So photographers or writers or these kind of people. And actually, we just brought on into our community Katlin Helik, who won Estonia's Next Top Model a couple of years ago. Wow. So she has a strong online presence and really wants to move her personal brand from just being a model to kind of being a creator and making content on YouTube and on her own platform. Yeah, so the people we work with are mostly Instagram, YouTube right now, and then those creative professionals.
Interesting. So you mentioned micro-influencers. So are those people who usually already have a small following, or could it literally be someone who's, relatively new to social media who wants to become or aspires to be more of a micro-influencer or even an influencer?
Yeah, so kind of both situations. I would say that the large majority of the people we work with already have some small audience, and often a really strong core audience of a few thousand people or so that follow them for whatever they do. And then there's this creative professional side tends to a lot of times be people like photographers or filmmakers who have a ton of content and just haven't kind of executed on it properly so that they can have the kind of creative freedom that they need to not still work a side job or that sort of thing. So we've actually had recently a photographer who worked with us and was able to, it was kind of a celebratory moment. He was able to quit his side job and take photography full time based only off of what we worked on for his personal brand and what he was able to execute on. So kind of both sides of micro-influencer and people who have zero audience in the beginning.
I see. Some of the ways that you help the creators, do you usually do strategy for them? Do you help them with content creation? What kind of services do you offer?
So for creators in particular, like you said, that strategy piece where we say that's pretty much where it starts always, is where are you now and where do you want to go and what are the steps we need to take in the middle in order to get you there? And how much bigger can we go than you think you can? Because, it's really hard to imagine sometimes that you can really do something crazy and make something of yourself that's totally impossible or like the people you look up to or whatever. So kind of stretching out their dreams and showing them how they can execute on really specific things in order to get there is usually the first step. And then from there, we foster a lot of collaborations and we help them with negotiating with brands, or sometimes we even manage them completely and say, from now on, like if a brand reaches out to you, you can send them to us, and like a typical management agency style. And we try to find them opportunities for interesting collaborations with brands or with other creators as well, and help them grow their brands.
Interesting. How did you decide to start a business like this?
Yeah, I don't know. I was in university, actually. That's why I moved to Estonia. And I got a month or two into university and realized that if you want to build a startup, if you want to do anything really, you kind of have to start. And being in university, for me, for some people, I think and everything is to the individual, but I think people who really want to build something of their own or do something a little bit different, university is, if anything, going to discourage you from doing that, because you rack up this debt, and then you only have this one thing that you think you can execute on in order to pay off that debt. And then you're trapped in the cycle, and you live this professional life and you give up on the things you wanted to do because it's too risky. And so for me, I really quickly realized, one, that university it's just not my style of learning. I think I really need to learn and be surrounded by people and kind of collaborate with them to do stuff together. And that's how I like to solve problems. So university wasn't a great fit for me personally. And I realized that in order to start a company, I needed to start a company.
Right.
So I as far as how it came to be, I was trying to figure out what the project was going to be, because I knew I needed something in my life. And I was kind of obsessed with digital marketing over the end of last year, and influencer marketing is this really big marketing arbitrage where it can be really inexpensive to do something really awesome. And I wanted to work with these creators. So that's how the Makery idea came, at least.
Interesting. Did you kind of leave university but still decided to stay in Estonia and build your business there?
Yeah, totally. Estonia is an incredible place for startups. The ecosystem here is insane. When I first discovered Estonia, because I to be totally honest and maybe show my intelligence a little bit, I don't think I'd ever heard of Estonia before I found the country from a Forbes article that said Estonia is the Silicon Valley of Europe.
Wow.
So yeah, that's kind of what attracted me here, and what keeps me here is this really insane startup ecosystem where you have, for the size of the country, they've had 3 unicorns, which means they've had 3 companies go over €1 billion. For such a small country, that's really, really insane. And they've only been independent for like 30 years or something now. So yeah, the Estonian startup ecosystem is really what keeps me here for sure.
Wow, that's interesting. And you actually were the one who told me that Skype, which is the software we're using right now to record this, was actually started in Estonia. I didn't even realize that.
Yeah. So Skype headquarters are actually, I think, still here. I think it's the headquarters. I know they have a big giant office here. I'm not sure if their headquarters is in the States or what with Microsoft, but Skype was started by, I think, 2 Estonians and a guy from Sweden, and kind of grew up in Estonia here in Tallinn, actually. And it's partly given credit for jumpstarting the ecosystem a little bit here, because suddenly there was all this crazy tech craze in Estonia, and this big giant thing was happening.
Wow. So then, you've made the decision to start your business. How did you even know where to start or what activities to start with to get it off the ground? That's
a really good question. Yeah. I think I surrounded myself with good mentors. I think that was kind of where it began. I'm the kind of person that will take the social sacrifice or the risk to ask somebody for something, or to, sometimes it can be really scary to walk up to somebody in an event and say, "Hey, I'm Avery. This is who I am." Obviously, that's a scary thing for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And I've kind of trained myself to be able to do that after a lot of years. So I think where starting came from was being able to reach out to people. And I've had some great mentors here from incubators and things like that, and kind of gone the extra mile to be able to talk to those people. We're currently in a startup incubator here called Elevator Startups. Mm-hmm. And the way that I was able to get in here really with zero traction at all, or really just a name of a company. Mm-hmm. That was pretty much all I had when I applied here. Was after I sent my application, I immediately messaged, I think I added everybody who was employed by the incubator on LinkedIn, mm-hmm. and sent a message that said, "Hey, I'm coming to visit tomorrow. I hope you're around." And then the next day I showed up here and came in, and luckily they gave me enough time to express this idea and how passionate I was about it and how eager I am to learn. And I was able to get really great mentors through that. Having mentors and eliminating doubt, I guess, is the first 2 things. Start experimenting and understanding the customer and the problem instead of the solution is really a big one too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's great advice. And I think mentorship is always cited as something that's important, particularly for people who, well, really anyone, whether you're starting a business or you're doing the typical corporate career or whatever you're doing. And it's interesting to hear you talk about kind of how you found those mentors, because I think sometimes people are like, you should get a mentor, and then no one has any idea like what that means or who to ask or where to go. So that's fascinating that you actually found people online and then you went to your incubator's office and actually got the opportunity to meet with some people there.
Yeah, totally. And it's really like, go to events. That's the biggest place that I found everybody. I found half of my team at events. I found mentors at events, and the opportunities to I found our biggest client came from an event that I went and pitched at called Halt Prize. But so much comes from these networking events where you go, and as long as you go with the intention to learn and not the intention to ask somebody for something, then usually you get something. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So going to events has been really, really key in my learning from the people who speak, but also from the people in the audience. Everybody has something to offer, especially in these startup ecosystems. It's like buzzing around a little bit and talking to people about their ideas and what they're doing. You can really start to figure out who's who and who's worth talking to and who has an idea, and siphon off as much knowledge as you possibly can. And then eventually you meet somebody who you really hit it off with and send an email that says, I want to grab a coffee or have lunch or whatever, and try to make them fall as in love with your idea as you are and get as much knowledge from them as you can.
Right. You really got to put yourself out there and meet as many new people as you can who are interested in the same types of things that you are.
Especially in the professional space, I think, as far as finding mentors, like it's super important, and it's a really good look, because those people who are worthy of being your mentor probably have connections in whatever industries or spaces that you're trying to get into. So if you can prove to them that you're learning, then they can prove to their friends that you're learning, and maybe you get a job or another mentor or client or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. Sometimes it's those second and third level connections that really help build business or help build your career. It's not always the first people that you meet, but it's sort of continuing to build out that extended network.
Yeah. And going back to your original question, actually, one thing that I've been really like driving into everybody I can meet is you really have to start, especially young people. I think that people just get so paralyzed by the idea of, I don't know what to do, or I don't know what to start with, or I don't know how to start. It's like, you probably don't know how to start, and you have to start anyway. That's the secret. You have to figure out whatever small, tiny chunk of what you're doing or what you want to do that you think you could learn. I could have taken any route in the digital marketing space. I could have said, cool, I'll just learn about SEO for the next 2 months, and then I'll be good enough probably to do SEO for one client, and then I'll learn way more, and I'll learn about getting a client too. And then if I hate SEO, then I have this really awesome foundation for the next thing that I want to try. We spent in the ideation phase and discovering what Makery was going to be, or what our concept and vision was. We interviewed hundreds of creators and reached out to a ton of brands and agency executives, and at events we're giving people surveys and links and things just to get feedback and understand what people's real struggles were. And that gives you real direction. When you just start with a solution and say, we want to do influencer marketing, of course you don't know where to start. That's why you have to figure out who has the actual problem you want to solve and ask them what you need to do, at least when it comes to starting a company. And I think it's really relevant for anybody trying to learn or do anything, is you have to start.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially with something like digital marketing, which is a relatively new field, but certainly a field that changes so frequently, is that you constantly have to be in learning mode and doing mode, because what you learned last year about SEO or whatever is probably at least a little bit out of date pretty quickly. So it's constantly doing things.
Yeah, and you have to kind of love the chase. It's like in digital marketing especially, it's like everybody knows there's a carrot in front of everyone's face, and only one person gets it, because the first couple of people that get to whatever the new hack is or whatever kind of break it, or if it's an SEO trick or something, then Google eventually fixes their thing. So yeah, you definitely have to love the chase and the learning mode, like you said.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess going back to that and thinking about, how you're running and growing your new company, thinking about your own set of skills, what would you say are your most important strengths or skills that you're currently using to run and grow your new company?
That's really interesting, actually. I'm pretty good at not being romantic about things, which might sound a bit weird, but I think it's really important as a startup to not get romantic about anything, really, about the idea, about the solution, about the industry, about the name, the brand, whatever. You really have to be flexible enough to have somebody say, no, that's a horrible idea, and be able to take it and run with that and use it as as motivation, or sometimes when a door slams, it means that you were knocking on the wrong door. And being able to have the resilience to have a ton of people say that this idea is horrible, or that it'll never go somewhere, or no, you won't meet that deadline, or no, the tech's not possible, or whatever. And really looking critically and saying, okay, does this person have a real point here, and how can we pivot around it? Or saying, we know what we're trying to do better than anybody else, and we can still crush it, which also still happens sometimes. But being able to, be resilient to that doubt is one for sure. And then I don't have a lot of really hard skills, actually. I wouldn't say I'm not that smart of a guy. So maybe I'm just good at surrounding myself with smart people. That and kind of facilitating or communicating has been really key, especially in a startup, being able to have a plan and stick with it, whether it be on the macro, where it's like, what are we doing this month? What are our objectives and key results, and what's really important, and being able to keep people motivated to hit those instead of like fearful of deadlines or whatever. Being flexible, or being resilient to doubt, and being able to communicate with people has been the two biggest ones for sure.
Oh, those are definitely important. You said you started your business relatively recently. Is that right? Yeah.
So we actually just founded in the new year, 2018. I would say we started kind of in the beginning of December or something like that, but we move really quickly, apparently, because we've got like 10 people on the team now, and we're working with some of the most prolific brands, I would say, in Estonia, like Taxify, and which is Uber's biggest European competitor, if not the biggest European rideshare app, period. I'm not sure. But so working with guys like Taxify, and meeting with people from agencies like Elite, which is a giant modeling agency that manages like Will Smith's kids and stuff from Paris, and having them kind of try to get in on the deal and say, we want a chunk of this, and we want to be a part of it. And we've worked really hard to move super fast, and it's exciting to see, but only a couple months old yet.
Wow, that's awesome. So in that time, what kind of feedback have you gotten from your clients?
It's been varied, of course, because it's really hard to build a team, especially a product team when you're a startup, people who can really code and understand the tech behind what you're trying to do rather than just a vision. And so in a couple of months, it's hard to manage running an agency model, basically, which is what we've done with some clients like Taxify, for example, and splitting that between, running really complicated campaigns that have to be done incredibly well so that we get an awesome case study and testimonial, and at the same time balancing building a product team and managing that team, and trying to figure out even small stuff like what is the interface going to work with? What's the first thing we have to build, and what can we test first? And at the same time starting to do go-to-market strategy and this sort of stuff. So it's been a lot to do, but the feedback from the clients we've had, at least we've been able to hit the metrics. And of course, not everything works out. Usually if we start a campaign, if we get to that point, then clients are happy afterwards, I would say. I think the biggest failure, or the slap in the face, was we had this really giant client who was, I won't call them out, but they were one of the world's largest cryptocurrency marketplaces, particularly dealing with Bitcoin. They're based in Estonia. They're kind of worldwide. I think they have a headquarters in New York as well, but they wanted to go to China, and we have my co-founder is actually from Hong Kong. And so we were a really good fit for them, and at least we thought so. And so we went to the first meeting, and they were really excited, and convinced them to pay us just to do a proposal. So we hustled really hard and got together a really solid piece of market research that showed why what we were going to do was going to work, and everything, and went to the proposal meeting a month or so later, and it went really, really well. And we shook hands and said, we'll sign contracts on Monday. It was like a Thursday or Friday or something. We'll come back and have the contracts ready. And then a couple of days later, just before we were supposed to sign the contract, I got a mysterious message on Facebook from one of the people there who said, we're not moving forward. And that was it. And I haven't heard anything since. So, and it was such a large client that it would have paid for the entire development of our product. You know, it would have paid the team for the next 8 months or something. So kind of having that in your pocket and then have somebody take it back was a big learning curve and a big slap on the wrist to say, don't count your chickens before they hatch, for sure.
Wow. Yeah. As you're looking for clients, I could see how that, how a really big client like that, you start thinking about all the things that you can do once you get them on board. And I could totally understand it's a disappointment when it doesn't work out. Yeah, totally. And it was like, after the meeting we left and we had a good cry, and I called my mom, and it was like, look, we did it, and everything's awesome. And then a couple of days later, I had to call my mom back. So that one was really hard. And
luckily the team was really supportive of me, because more than anything, I was worried that I let them down, but they were right there at my side when it was time for the next guy. So now we're back at it.
That's good. Yeah, it's all about getting back and moving forward from those sorts of things.
Yeah, I heard once from a lecture series that I went to about, it was like an event series, and this one guy who has this kind of, it's a successful startup, I would say, but really had a hard time getting any traction. And they have this big poster on their wall, and it says EAEB, and it's just like a graph of a kind of roller coaster or something. And I asked him what it means, and he said, in startup life, everything's awesome and everything's bullshit. Which at the time I understood, I thought, because it's like, we work way too hard and hoping for an end result that works out. But on that day, I really realized what he meant, where it was like so simultaneously or so quickly, you could have everything stripped away from your excitement or whatever.
Yeah, you're really on the extremes. See that?
Yeah.
So I guess building on that a little, and maybe it was this situation that you just mentioned, but if you could tell me a little bit about the biggest challenge that you faced in either launching or running your business, and either, how do you approach it or how do you try to overcome it?
Building a team is really, really hard as a startup, especially with really specific skill sets, because there's a lot of people who would love to get involved with a startup and are more than willing, especially when you're kind of, I'm 20 years old. I just turned 20. And so everybody on the team is around the same age. And it's easier to kind of inspire people to join a team and work when they're that age. But at the same time, you have to be really careful about not just bringing on cool people, but also really talented, exceptionally good at what they do people. So building a team has been a learning curve for sure. And getting rid of people from the team has also been really hard for me. I don't like to see that look in people's faces when they really believe in your vision, and you have to ask them to find another way to chase their own. But yeah, building a team has been hard. And I would say that we're so young, we haven't hit the biggest walls yet. Like, we were able to get to making a little bit of money pretty quickly, but I'm sure at some point there'll be days where it's like, if this client's a no, then we have to shut down. And I've heard of that happening. So I don't look forward to those days, but I'm sure they'll come.
Right. I hear you. So from building a team for a startup, how do you go out and find or recruit talent? And then what do you look for when you're talking with them and thinking about bringing people onto the team?
One of the underlying values at Maker is transparency, default to transparency. So from the very beginning, I make it really clear that anybody who's willing to try to prove that they can give something is welcome on the team for the first month. And then we kind of visit and say, have you been able to show the value that you said you could do? And do you have the skill sets that look like they could help us, like you said you did? And if not, then allow people to move on to the next thing, I would say. Maybe that's a nice way of saying it. I don't know. Yeah, but as far as finding people as a startup, if you have a really good idea and you tell a lot of people about it, then when the idea kind of came around, the first couple of people I approached about being on the core team were excited, and then you add one more, and then you get rid of two, and then you go to we went to a hackathon actually, and ended up getting a creative director from there and a couple other members as well. Not even who participated in the hackathon, but rather one guy even who's kind of an all-star product engineer. And yeah, so I would say it's been almost entirely just social networking and being eager to find unique ways to provide people value. We have the lead developer on our team. He's 19 years. I don't think he's turned 20 yet. He's 19 years old. Wow. Started coding when he was 7 and dropped out of high school when he was 16 to start working at a development company. Yeah, so finding these really unique characters is really tough to do unless you go out and look, I would say.
It's interesting. And I guess it's, from the other side, something to think about. It really speaks to the importance of networking if you're someone who's in a job search and interested in working at a startup or looking for really, I guess, almost any other type of role. It kind of shows that you need to be out there and at least be in situations where you can demonstrate what your abilities are, outside of an actual job interview in some cases. Because it seems, particularly with new startups like this, it seems like the whole recruiting process is a little bit different.
I think for professionals, I don't know, I've never really been this corporate professional type, but just I haven't had the opportunity, I guess. But the thing that I think people do is they wait until they don't have a job to start looking for a job. if you feel even slightly as though maybe you might lose your job in the next year, you should probably start looking now and get better at the things that you want to do instead of the things you don't want to do, and surround yourself with people who are building cool things that fulfill you in ways other than just your paycheck, and try to find a space where you can be happy and well fed.
Yeah, that makes sense. And to your point earlier, is just start doing things. With technology, you can teach yourself software packages. You can make videos. You can make, like the content creators that you work with. You can do that and build it up for yourself. You don't have to be hired by someone to do that if you want to learn something or try something new. And then hopefully through your content, that can help you find your next opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially like building a personal brand is an incredible way to prove that you're good at what you do and that other people trust you. And doing that doesn't only come down to posting on Instagram every day and getting lots of followers and having people love you, which is also really, really useful and fantastic if you're willing to execute on it. But building your personal brand in real life, being the person who says yes before the person finishes asking for the favor, and being generous and open to opportunity, and being known for that in whatever community that you're a part of is really important. Like you said, I think that's what you meant, is kind of the personal brand part is or doing things that you love and showing the world that you love them is really valuable.
Mm-hmm. And with personal brand, because it's such a big buzzword, certainly here in the United States and probably in many other places around the world too.
Yeah,
but I think it gets confused where people think it's all about the image that you're projecting, and it is. But in order to be truly successful, you need to be able to back it up with the ability to do great work, and, as you said, to be the one who's willing to offer those favors in the beginning right away. And, it's kind of that combination of how you're projecting and marketing yourself, but actually having the strength and the skills to back it up as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like I've seen people who try to build a brand online, or this kind of online personal brand based off of an image, like you said, and it's just not sustainable from a personal fulfillment standpoint. Eventually, you're going to realize that you're living a life for your audience and not for yourself. And if you're doing it in a different direction, like a professional direction, and you're kind of just fooling people, then it's not going to get you very far. You might be able to fool the fools, but real recognizes real, as we say in the hip hop world. And so, yeah, you have to really be the person that you pretend to be, or that you portray yourself as. Otherwise, it's totally unsustainable.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know you're still a relatively young business, but, kind of looking forward, what are your goals for your business?
So in about a month and a half, we hope to launch the beta test of our actual platform. And from there, we'll kind of do some account-based marketing towards bigger agency conglomerates. So companies who have locations all over the place. If we can get one, then maybe we can get many. That's the hypothesis. So yeah, our goal for this year is to probably go through a fundraising round and try to raise some kind of strategic investment. Hopefully, because we've been bootstrapped this far, we can maintain that pretty well. But we're looking at doing some taking some strategic investments from marketing CEOs or these kind of people who are well connected. And I would say this year we really hope to get into a really amazing accelerator, something like Y Combinator or a Facebook accelerator or something like this. Yeah, and also just to build a freaking awesome product and a brand that people really want to be a part of, and a community, especially a creative community that people are eager to come on and understand, can really feel the value they're getting and see it and be inspired by their own growth. That's kind of where the idea started too. In the beginning, I guess, was building a place people love to come to work on Monday. And I apply that for the people who work here, but also the creators who I want them to be able to wake up on Monday and say, I love that I get to do the thing that I love, that I don't have to do my corporate job or the thing that I maybe otherwise would have felt safe but didn't want to do.
Yeah, really opening up those opportunities for people.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's not a really smart goal, as you say, but it's definitely the infinite game that's really inspiring to play.
Oh, that's great. It's a great vision, just giving people tools and empowering them to really create and do what they love.
Yeah, it's exciting. And it's so cool to be around because it's, you're a product of the people you spend the most time with. So you spend the most time with a bunch of crazy people who just love to make epic videos or tell incredible stories, then it rubs off on you after a while, I hope.
So how can people get in touch with you to learn more about Modash and the types of work that you're doing?
To get in touch with me directly, you can send an email to Avery Schrader at outlook.com. That's the easiest way to get me directly, other than LinkedIn, especially. I'm super active on this, as you know. That's how we met. But You can find me on pretty much every social platform. I'm particularly active on LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram. And outside of that, makery.eu is the space to find the company website, although all of that will change pretty soon. But makery.eu should get you there. And we can solve all of your influencer marketing problems.
Great. Awesome. And if any of our listeners work in marketing and would like to try out Modash's platform for free, you can email hello@modash.io. I'll put all of that contact information in the show notes of the podcast so that people can refer to it there.
Fantastic. Yeah. And I'm super eager to just talk to interesting people, even if you're not looking for influencer marketing or you're not a creator, or maybe you want to be a creator or something, but I don't know, you don't have the money to spend or you just have one question. I'm really eager to just communicate with people and have interesting conversations like this one.
Awesome. Okay, great. As we close out today, is there anything else that you'd like our listeners to know, or really anything else that they can do to help or support you?
Well, I'll say the selfish one first. The selfish one is that I really do love doing these kind of podcasts and things like that. Today, I hope I was able to keep my energy up a little bit. But if you run a podcast, or if you're interested in having a guest to talk about pretty much anything at all that's within my realm of knowledge, then I'm more than excited to have those kind of conversations. I'm also looking for opportunities to speak at cool places. It looks like I might get to do a TED Talk in the next 6 months or so. So that would be really awesome. But any kind of speaking opportunities or podcast opportunities, that sort of thing I really love. And then my message to the listeners is you have to go and do stuff. That's every time somebody asks me, what's my final plug? It's, I need you to go and do things that you love to do, and don't live lives that allow you to be miserable. Separate yourself from all the things that make you unhappy and just do awesome stuff, because life's too short to waste time.
That's great advice and a great way to close out the podcast.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Carolyn.
Great. Thank you so much for joining on the show, and it was great to talk to you, and good luck with your new business.
Thank you so much. Greatly appreciate that.
Thanks for listening to the Beyond 6 Seconds podcast. Please subscribe to the show in iTunes or your favorite podcast player so you won't miss any episodes. You can also find all the show notes and links we discussed in this episode at our website, www.beyond6seconds.com. Until next time.